Okay. I'm just going to share my screen here, so give me a second. And, oh, I got 2 slides for you, some colorful pictures. If my computer, okay, so a couple of new faces. So I have not had all of you in class, so that's great. My name is Sharon Keach. Kind of sounds like peach. Yeah, this is a weird spelling there. Actually, one of our, well, Darlene, who's on the call right now, Darlene Gilroy, actually made this last week as kind of a spotlight that she put on the Facebook page. For those of you who haven't joined either, I guess that I'm encouraging you, if you have not seen this before, to join both the EWU Geology Facebook page and the EWU Geology Twitter page. So I just threw this up here because these are kind of the things that I like to do. And I think a lot of geologists like doing things out of doors. And that was one thing that attracted me to geology in the first place. So careers outdoors, right? So I always wanted to have something where I could work outside. And thankfully, geology has done that for me. My favorite kind of topic there are glaciers. That's actually what I came to the US to study. That one in the center there, I love that because that's probably where I'm going to retire, somewhere down in the southwest Colorado area. And then there's me teaching field camp up there on the lower right. So how did I end up in geology teaching? So like everybody here, we have geology degrees, both from undergrad and graduate degrees. So starting at the top left 2 pictures, in the UK, you need to do an undergraduate thesis. And I chose to do mine on an area of these weird structures here are called hoodoos. They're from differential erosion. I chose to do my undergrad thesis there. You have that opportunity here in the department to start to practice doing research for those of you who are going on to grad school. I love doing research. How could you not love this location? This is actually where half of my family is. My brother still lives there in the mountains, so this is the South Tyrol, and I spent most of my summers and winter breaks there, and so grew up loving skiing. There's one outdoor thing, and just kind of like, how did this cool topography get formed? I'm a geomorphologist, so that is, I guess that's how I got started, spending time in the mountains, and chose to do my research there. The middle top, another glacial landscape there, that was as I came to the US to study glaciers. Actually didn't quite turn out that way, but I ended up doing some mountain lakes here up in the Colorado Front Range. It's actually at the mountain station from the University of Colorado Boulder. And so I did my master's thesis up there looking at lake cores from these lakes here to kind of look at forest histories in terms of not just forests, but fire histories. So I got started with looking at lake cores there. And kind of after I finished with grad school, I did go on and do kind of a post-grad 1-year research assignment with Professor Jackson at NAU, so Northern Arizona University. And that actually led to some paleoclimate kind of analysis, looking at plant macrofossils and microfossils. We put together a database for the US for the last 18,000 years of plant macrofossils to see how vegetation had changed during the last sort of 18,000 years. So I kind of started out, I did love research. After doing that, though, I thought I needed to go and try the real world. So I worked as a consulting geologist for a couple of different companies. One of them here on the lower left, that's GES, Geotechnical and Environmental Services, in Nevada and Las Vegas area. I'd also worked at a different lab in a different company, consulting company in Indiana before doing that, setting up a soils lab, doing geotechnical field analysis, lab analyses, as well as some environmental site assessments. So I did similar things down in Nevada. Great, incredible experience. I probably spent 60 to 80% of my time outdoors. The other 40 to 20% of time was in the lab doing analyses and writing up reports and so on. So I kind of got a little heat exhausted from that. Working in Nevada in 118 degrees in the summer, you know, with 60-hour weeks, it just physically, I couldn't do it anymore. And so I went back to school to go back into looking at teaching. So I got another degree in science and education. And after that, I worked at mostly a high school. I did work in a middle school for a short while, but I taught every science topic there is for high school science students at the Silverado High School. I had decided I want to change in career because I had really enjoyed, and my first sort of start with teaching was as a teaching assistant when I was doing my graduate degree. I had really liked it at that time, and so I made that pretty significant shift in careers by going back to school and getting that degree. After high school, moved up here to Spokane, and now I think this is my 16th year at Easton teaching geology, which I love, 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 love. And of course, I still do get to teach a little bit outdoors, but no longer in 118 degrees, so that's good. I could talk forever, obviously, about, anyone can talk about themselves for forever on what they've been doing in geology, but I'd like you to know that for me, it took me a while to find what I wanted to do with geology. There was no doubt I love geology. And so, you can plan everything, but it doesn't always work out the way you think it is when you're getting that first degree. However, geology does open a lot of different doors for you. The consulting world, I spent some time in there, but there are so many different opportunities. Even if you don't like going outdoors, there's lots of indoor opportunities, and I'm sure you've had a chance, so I hope you've had a chance to talk to some of our faculty about what some of those options might be. I am the advisor for Earth and Space Science, so that's and natural science. So those are for folks who are going to be teaching either middle school or high school. So some of the classes I teach are for, like I teach a course content class, Geology 115, that's really designed for elementary education majors. And then now a senior class for the senior secondary ed folks who are going to be teaching science, and that is actually going to be based now in the classroom. So I actually will be going out to our local classrooms and working with our pre-service teachers to help kind of step into that role. So I'm not sure, Charles, what you actually wanted here. Hope that was, I don't know if that was useful. Please feel free to come chat with me anytime you want about the possibility of teaching, even if you're just thinking about it. And or like the consulting, doing the geotechnical stuff, what that's like, being a female in I have to tell you, it's more male dominated, or at least it was in my experience. So I'm happy to talk to you about any of those sort of things that I did, and environmental side assessments too, as well as the geotechnical stuff. So can I pass it over? Do I need to shut? Let's see.
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you. You can, I think you can just stop. There you go. And then if you want, after you give your guys this little intro, you can send your email in the chat to everybody. And so then if they want to contact you, they can. So next up, we'll do Nigel, because he's next on my screen. So Nigel can go ahead and talk for a minute or so, or a couple minutes about himself.
All right. It's always exciting. All right, there we go. Let's do a little share screen. Oh, the host has disabled the share screen feature. Host.
There you go. You're a co-host now, so you should be able to share your screen.
All right, fantastic. All right, let's give this a Shift F5. Of course, you got the view and slideshow from beginning. All right, there we go. Hi, everybody. So I have this background back here. These are the Hallelujah Mountains. I did a little outreach thing last week about Avatar. And so these are the kind of things I do now, but they're not always the things I've been doing. So I started in the world of chemistry. I thought I wanted to be a chemist when I started in college. I went to school in St. Louis, Washington University. You're going to get a theme of the word Washington University coming out here. So just tuck that away. I got a degree in environment, Earth and planetary science, and got to work on some analogs for the Mars rover. My advisor at the time, who drew me into the world of geology and slightly away from the world of chemistry, was the PI, or the deputy PI, for the Spirit and Opportunity rovers. And I actually got an opportunity to work for him. There you are. You got a photo of me standing back in the day. A lot more hair back then. It's gone as a result of interactions with people over the years. But worked on the Mars rovers and also the Phoenix lander that dug at a icy polar landing site on Mars, and was able to look at some of the water record. It's the chase for water went on. And so from there, I went to California. I worked at Pomona College. I basically made up for the fact that I didn't get to go outdoors as much during my undergraduate degree by taking a job that allowed me to take students on field trips. I remember back, it was the April of 2005, I spent 19 days in the field of the 31 possible. And it was every bit as exhausting and enjoyable as you can imagine. There are some of the students and myself right in there, still way more hair back then, at the top of Notch Peak in Utah. Part of the Basin and Range Extensional Province. So getting to know and getting a feel for a wide range of geologic areas, from the carbonate sedimentary world of the Midwest all the way to the evolved West Coast and into the Great Basin. So I think one of the things that's great is make sure that you have experience in multiple different places, because you can then tie in what you see in a specific location into a broader framework. And I think that's a really key ability as a geologist, is to draw upon all of your previous experiences. So, oh, I don't know why that's gone like that. Aha. Well, I think you can still see it. For some reason, it's not saved in there. But from there, I went to, I'm not quite sure why it's not saving. From there, I went to grad school at Western Washington University. I worked with Doug Clark and got involved in glacial geomorphology. So looking at the Wind River Range and how a specific drainage had been evolved over the past 10,000 years, but it also involved sedimentary coring of proglacial lakes. So the lakes in front of the glaciers hold the sedimentary record that is being pumped out of the glacier. And from there, you can paleo reconstruct what the environment was like. Fascinating. But one of the things that was really key to my time at Western was getting to go and participate with other people's research projects, getting to learn how to use ground penetrating radar up at the top of Mount Baker in a crater that was filled with snow. Getting to learn how to deploy a turbidity monitor on a landslide that was generating asbestiform yogurt-like material in the river water. These types of experiences allow you to then draw and use them as you migrate on in your geology career. I worked briefly for the Department of Natural Resources, doing a mapping project on the west side of the state, so on the Olympic Peninsula, and learned again more about the glacial geology. I also learned a lot about what it's like to work for a state agency, which was fun and enjoyable. So I'm more than happy if you want to talk about what the DNR or state geology environment looks like. I got to Eastern. I've been here since 2011, so that's 10 years. Wow. It's been great. I'm getting a lot of really cool opportunities from teaching field camp and getting to evolve our Geology 100 labs, getting to learn how to do a variety of other fun things like how to edit videos, how to make quality social media posts, how to engage with the community in different in different venues. So those are also really key. And then the most important part is I get to engage with students still. And so I do run all the geology labs. I run our TAs. So if you're interested in TAing, I would be a great person to come in contact. I would love for you to, under normal circumstances, walk in and say hi, but under the other circumstances, it'd be great. Send me an email and we'll be in touch about those types of opportunities, getting to help out here in the department. All right, I'll leave it there because I'm sure I took too much time.
No, you're good. We'll keep flying right through just to make sure we have time for questions. So Dr. Thompson, do you want to go next? You don't have to have a PowerPoint or anything. You can just.
No, I prepared one while Sharon and Nigel were presenting, so I will share my screen.
Okay, perfect. And we'll just make sure we keep it pretty quick so we have time for questions.
Absolutely. So I was born in England and moved across the pond in 1963 on the Queen Elizabeth I. That's me on the left, my sister on the right, and us playing dress ups as kids. I was always interested in science as a high school student, especially in biology. And in fact, I wanted to become a marine biologist. But then 1975, Jaws came out, and that changed my life altogether. So in 1978, when I was 17 years old, I declared my major as a geology major at the University of New Hampshire. And I then went to the University of Maine at Orono after developing an interest in petrology and optical mineralogy. And I got my PhD at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I've been at Eastern since 1996, and I blame the fact that I'm a geologist based on the fact that I grew up in a stone house. That's my family home. It is comprised of serpentinite with a slate roof. They're both metamorphic rocks. So it's pretty clear why I'm a geologist and a metamorphic petrologist. The image with me in the puka shells is from the 1970s. That's my graduation picture from high school. And then there are some other shots of me leading field trips for students at Eastern, but mostly I teach introductory geology classes, crystallography, optical mineralogy, earth materials. I think I just went back from I changed my screen. I had notes because I'm old. I've been here since 1996. I lead field trips to Hawaii. I've taught volcanology before, would love to teach an ore deposits class. During the summers, I've taught for older folks for the Rhodes Scholar program, which used to be called Elder Hostel. And I've led field trips for the Geological Society of America as well to the Big Island of Hawaii. The image to the left is me and my PhD advisor, Peter Robinson, who just passed away. The image on the far right top is me in my youth, leading field camp at Albion College in Michigan. So I also dabble in exploration geology. I have a small consulting business, which is either dead or alive since 2008. So that's a picture of me in the lower right-hand corner when I was skinnier trying to get into an adit in Idaho. If you ever go up in a helicopter, choose doors off, you get more, better pictures. Let's see. In addition to introductory geology, earth materials, optical mineralogy, and crystallography, igneous and metamorphic petrology, volcanology, and ore deposits, I've taught structural geology in the past before. Anyway, I can advise on all things hard rock. And I've assisted students with graduate school applications. And I'm proud to say that there are several students who have graduated from Eastern who have gone on for a PhD in petrology. I'll leave it at this. My sister is a hat designer and I never wear dresses.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Thompson.
And it's almost Easter, right?
Yes.
Well, there you have it. Bye.
All right. So, Dr. Nazat, you can go ahead and go.
Okay, excellent. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I do not have a PowerPoint, but I pulled up some pictures. So unlike some of the other professors, I grew up in a very non-mountainous environment. I didn't realize that there was geology to be seen. And I'm not sure if I'm sharing. Can you see the picture of the Mississippi River Delta?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, excellent. It's not showing me that green box. So anyway, where C is right here, I grew up just north of there, west of the Chafalaya River. So very flat area. Mountains were just, what I saw in pictures. And so for me, geology was oil and gas, but I still didn't know that much about geology. I didn't know that you could get a job in it. My grandfather actually worked in oil and gas, and we saw the market go up and down and people lost their jobs. So the word was don't go into geology. My senior year in high school, I went to a small high school. There were earth science was taught and physics was taught. And in Louisiana, if you wanted to go to college, you had to take physics. Well, there was only one section of each and they were both taught at the same time. And so I wanted to go to college. And so I took physics and unfortunately not earth science. Because of that, it wasn't until my junior year in college that I took a geology class. And because my boyfriend was a geologist at that time, so that I can blame him. But I took that class and I realized that's what I wanted to do. I think I knew from a young age that I wanted to teach. I remember even in second and third grade, I wanted to teach. I liked science, I liked math, history, no way, business, no way. And I liked the environmental aspect of it too. And so I changed my major to geology. Still wasn't sure what I wanted to do after that because, 21, 22, and I just felt like I wasn't ready to be a grown-up yet. And so I thought grad school. So I went on to grad school, and I went to grad school at University of Alabama. And one of the opportunities that I had there because of my research was to go to Antarctica. And this was a pretty spectacular opportunity, and it was because my graduate advisor was doing research in Antarctica. So I'll just show you this picture really quickly. Okay, can you see the map of the world?
Yes.
Okay. I know Darlene will tell me if I'm not, right? She's my checker in class.
I was like, oh, it's not geochem. I can't say anything.
No, you can. So I was able to do some research in Antarctica looking at the streams, and these are some of the areas where, where I basically lived for a couple months in some of the sites. We each had our own tents, so we were sleeping out in tents. I was collecting water samples. This is a very old picture of me collecting a water sample, very cold. This was a very salty pond that we were also checking out as well. One of the most spectacular events was we were flying back to McMurdo Base, where the station was, the place where we flew into and out of, and there were penguins that were along the edge of the ice. And so the helicopter pilot stopped, and we were able to get out, and the penguins walked right up to us. So for someone who is from a town of about 20,000, first generation college student, this was a spectacular event. And from there, I ended up doing some research at Ohio State University for a few years, and then decided to go on and do my PhD. In Antarctica, I was looking at weathering in the streams. And then from a stream water perspective, for my PhD, I was actually looking at the soils and weathering from that perspective, and calcium had been leached from the soils because of acid rain. So what were the sources of calcium to the trees and things like that. I've been at Eastern so University of Michigan for a PhD, and then here since 2007 after getting my PhD. And my research focuses on chemical weathering in natural environments, and then also to trace metals to like lead in soils, heavy metals in the Spokane River from mining upstream. And so most of my projects with students, Darlene is one of those, has focused on that. And I'm happy to do research with undergraduates, and I am actually analyzing samples in the lab right now. So if I disappear a few times, that's to check on things. But yeah, I love what I do. So I'm happy to answer any questions later.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Nazat. So we just have two more introductions, and then we'll jump into questions. So Dr. McKenzie, if you want to go next.
Hello. All right. I prepared a somewhat boring PowerPoint. So, there we go. Right. Thank you. So I am the newest member of the faculty here at Eastern in the geology department. And I focus on soft rock geology. So teaching, I teach discovering geology, so geology 100, historical, paleo, which is an elective, and then sedimentology and stratigraphy. So 122 and 411 are both classes that are that you will see me with if you have not already. And these focused mostly on our sedimentary record and the fossils in which they contain. And that's really kind of the focus of my research. Other things that I do here at Eastern, I'm the Geology Club advisor, so many of you know me. I am started dabbling, may not be the right word, into advising majors as well. I am currently our department's faculty senator, so if you want to know more about what it's like to be a faculty member and some of the service to do, I can tell you about it. And I have a lot of different undergraduate research opportunities in the focus of kind of sedimentology and paleo. Oops. So my story, I was that kid. You know, I was never that kid who was like, I want to be a vet, or I want to be a ballerina, or I want to be a princess. I was like 3 years old. People would ask me what I wanted to be, and I would say, I want to be a paleontologist. I was that kid. It started with dinosaurs. It expanded well beyond that. And I was kind of from a young age very focused on becoming a paleontologist, and I wasn't sure exactly how to do that. My initial career goal was to be a museum curator, and it shifted in graduate school after I had several TA opportunities to realize that teaching and educating people about my passion was something that I wanted to do. So my education, I'm originally from Ontario, Canada. So I've kind of been border hopping back and forth. Since then, we moved down to the States when I was in high school. So I have a bachelor's of science from Purdue University in solid earth science. And then I popped out west and kind of tried to stay here. I moved up to Alberta, Canada, at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, and actually got a master's in evolutionary biology, looking at the dentition of early Devonian fish teeth. This is some of the earliest teeth that we see in the fossil record, and trying to understand how they relate to the origins of teeth, and if all teeth stem from a common source, et cetera. From the bio side, I missed the context of the geology and what the rocks can tell us about the fossils. And so I kind of switched gears and wanted to get my PhD in a geological field, and found myself moving very similarly culturally, just down from Alberta into Montana, and went to the University of Montana, where I studied a exceptionally preserved fossil site in China, and have my PhD from the geosciences department there. I was a crazy person and went all the way through, and can talk about the pluses and minuses of that. It's exhausting, and I strongly urge people to get some experience, maybe not to batter their way directly through. It can be trying. Other kind of career, at least, experiences. I volunteered at the Field Museum in Chicago from high school through undergrad. I had a summer job as a museum technician at the John Day fossil beds, which was super cool, being able to work at a park to get an idea of a government job. And then I was an X-ray diffractometer lab manager during my dissertation, and then post-dissertation as well. So I'm just gonna have two more slides real quick. For what I do, I like the interdisciplinariness of geology, which is something that, again, drew me back from that biology master's, to integrate different aspects of geology, geochemistry, sedimentology, paleobiology, to understand and to answer problems in the past. And for me, I focus on this process of taphonomy, which I wrote a song about in my dissertation, understanding dead things and how they got there, and the different processes involved in that. And I have been lucky enough to study exceptionally preserved fossils. So those that have soft parts, feathers, original color preserved. And what I focus my work on is trying to understand why we see them. So looking at the chemistry of the sediments, looking at the different depositional environments to try to better recreate the conditions responsible for these super awesome fossils. In my academic career, I've had a chance to work, or in grad school, I worked on this Man on the Hill site in my master's program. So this is up in the Northwest Territories. And here are some of the fishes that are preserved there. Super, super cool, super cool. And then I had the opportunity to go to China and work on the early Cambrian Qingjiang biota during my dissertation. So these are fossilized anemones, which is amazing. So pretty lucky, pretty fortunate to talk about right time and place. Currently, I'm focusing my research more closer to home sites, but we do have two sites that have exceptionally preserved fossils in the inland Northwest. And so what I'm focusing most of my research on right now is the Clarkia fossil beds, where I have several projects that are underway, and to try to understand why we see insects with original color from the Miocene but I'm hoping to expand that to look at what's going on in Republic as well, and kind of comparing and contrasting fidelity of fossils, as well as different depositional environments. And so I will leave it at that. I'm happy to chat with anybody about research or grad school or geology in general, my story. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. McKenzie. So we're going to jump right into Dr. Pritchard is going to talk about what he does, and we're going to be really quick so we can have time for general questions after that.
Yeah, hey, I'm Chad. I'm the chair of the geology department, and I know all of you, and I thank you for coming. And if you'd like to chat about geology, please talk to me. Yes, questions? Let's get into it.
Okay, cool. So if you guys have questions, I think if you just kind of unmute and ask them, or like raise your hand, we can go through and kind of just popcorn answer. Whoever wants to answer it can just unmute, and whoever gets to it first, I guess, can go first.
I have a question, and anyone can feel free to answer it. So I've been kind of juggling between going to grad school and going straight into work. I'm probably going to apply to both, but I've been kind of curious whether, you know, getting like if I become a professional geologist, how much does it matter if you have a master's degree? I'm just kind of curious the benefits after you become a licensed geologist.
Well, I'll answer something and anybody else kick in, but I think a master's degree is advantageous, period, because you will make a higher salary than you would with just a bachelor's degree. I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I think that some of that educational experience might go toward the licensure.
Yeah.
And it's a good experience to get that research under your belt, but it is going to give you a higher salary and a better chance at job.
Yeah, a higher salary. It will also give you a leg up potentially for, you know, if you're competing with other students who just have a BS. And at least when I went through the process, for every year of 1 year of graduate school counts as 1 year of work experience. So whether you've worked at, you know, under a professional geologist for 2 years or gone to graduate school in geology for 2 years, those will both count.
Can I add that, so I agree with everything Jenny and Carmen have, Dr. Thompson and Dr. Naza have said. However, I would say that when you're sitting in front of a potential employer, that having undertaken a master's with, at least a master's with a dissertation, with a thesis, it tells them and shows them that you're able to work independently in some respects, right? And means you can figure things out and you could write. And both of those things, I don't know what field you're thinking about. I don't know if it's consulting, if you're thinking soils or geotechnical or environmental or something completely different. But from that consulting perspective, I would say that every employer would see that as something beneficial. However, we've had lots of students who've gone on and had successful careers without having a master's. That's all I wanted to add. Hopefully that gives you some ideas.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate all the feedback.
I've got a question, and Professor Keach, I thought of it while you were talking about your experience, and I've asked this question to other presenters before, but when it comes to the geotech side of things, as far as being fulfilled as a geologist studying geology, has that field been satisfying, or would you think that the other things that you've done, teaching in particular, has been the most satisfying bit in your geology career?
I have enjoyed both. I did not leave the field, the geotechnical soils environmental field, because I didn't like it. I actually did enjoy it. I enjoyed having that component of being outdoors. Every project was different. Now, it would probably depend on the size of the company in terms of whether you're going to end up becoming kind of a project leader. So I'd say it can be a fulfilling career, depending on what you want and what you enjoy, what you like. It definitely, from my experiences, I had lots of different opportunities to do different things because projects were pretty variable. Doing environmental site assessments, even though, you know, I might do a more phase ones than other, you know, the other Browns portions. Every site was different, and so it was like unraveling this history of each site to figure out, you know, what used to be there, what the usage was. There's a field component, there's a report writing component. So it was so varied that that was fulfilling for me. The teaching is fulfilling, but just in a completely different way. You know, and obviously I went through multiple sort of pathways, trying different things till before I landed on teaching. But I think those experiences were definitely valuable and helped me be a better teacher, just having some of those experiences under my belt. I don't know what anyone else, I know a few of you have been doing consulting as well. Dr. Pritchard?
He left. I forgot the question.
No.
The consulting I do is my own consulting business. People reached out to me in 2008 to write what are called 43101 technical reports, which are compliant with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's been a big learning curve, but I love the research.
No, Professor Keach, that answered my question pretty well. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm happy to chat more extensively outside of, you know, like you want to know more like what I was doing on a daily basis. I might give you a better idea. Sorry, I did not mean to is it Joe?
Jalen, I just had a follow-up question to that. So in your experience, would you find that it's easy to switch between a job in the public sector, like to the private sector, or do you find that people get pigeonholed in one or the other?
I did not feel pigeonholed at all. So I did not have that experience. I probably in total only worked about three and a half years for two different geotechnical companies. Each company was different. I mean, I was essentially doing the same things, but the scale of the companies, I think, was what made the difference. I preferred working in a smaller company because you just, I was able to do much more varied types of jobs. Not sure I really answered your question, so sorry, but.
No, that helps. That helps. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you might have answered the question that just came up in the chat versus working for a large company versus a small company. I think that to a certain extent depends on what kind of company you're working with. And so for example, if you're working with a junior exploration company in the mining sector, sometimes they can be in a state of disarray and not necessarily have the best management skills. Whereas large companies like Schlumberger and other environmental companies have had much more experience.
I had another question if no one else wanted to pitch in. I was just going to kind of ask for anyone who feels like answering what the workload is like for someone getting a master's degree versus when you're in your undergrad. I'm just kind of curious how that kind of feels.
Higher.
I think one of the biggest things to remember is it is more work, but I think where a lot of students will err is that you have to be driven enough to do it yourself. It's not like a class where you're necessarily, okay, you have these assignments and these tests and these milestones. Depending on the advisor that you have, you have some advisors who will want to meet with you every week, and you'll have some advisors that are like, so I'm going on a cruise to go do some ocean drilling and I'll see you in 6 months. And the biggest thing of regardless of what end of the spectrum of advisor you have is you have to be self-driven, and you have to be self-motivated, and you have to be able to come up with a schedule and stick to it yourself. It's much more of like a job in that sense than school. And I think that's where a lot of students err, because they struggle with the transition because of that, because they expect it to be, yes, you're taking graduate courses, but you're also doing your research, and you have to find a way to balance that time budget yourself.
And as far as the classes, you're not taking as many classes as you're required for an undergraduate. A lot of times those are seminars that are revolved about your research. But yeah, your research is a big component. If you have a teaching assistantship, that too is sometimes on your own. You might have your own lab that you meet weekly. So yeah, you definitely have to take the bull by the horns and buckle down and be able to produce.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I have a follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and this is kind of iterating what was just said, but time management is really the thing, right? And you can get a lot done if you are working an 8 to 5 job, and part of that is your research and your classes and things like that. Even when I started graduate school working on my master's, I was not very good at that. And I was not very confident doing research and doing writing, and I wasn't getting assistance. And so there was a lot of procrastination going on. So treating it as an 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job, that will take up the majority of your time. One of the things to think about too is when you're offered a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship, that's essentially your job. And typically that will come with a stipend as well as a tuition waiver. And so it's not enough to, put a lot into savings or anything like that, but it's money you're not paying tuition, and there should be enough to live on, rent an apartment, rent a place, and feed yourself. So that's kind of the idea behind the time. So you're not taking another job outside of graduate school as well.
Okay, thank you. I think all that was really insightful. I appreciate that.
So we're just about out of time. Does anyone, oh, good, we have a question. In the chat, it says, is it possible or advisable to work while you're working on a graduate degree?
I would say no, and it depends. It might depend on the graduate school. If you have a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship, that university might say, you're signing a waiver that you're not going to take any other jobs because it is taking up so much time. If you have if you're not being paid as a student, if you're paying for tuition and paying for everything yourself, then you're typically free to do what you want. But your advisor, your research advisor might say, well, if you're working 40 hours a week, I know that you're probably going to take 3 or 4 years of my time rather than 2 years. And so you have to find the right advisor, if that's it, or find a situation where, loans or whatever it is, to help you with that. And if you can dedicate more time to a graduate degree, and this is ideal, right? But not everyone has the perfect life where they can just focus on graduate school. So yeah, you can talk to us individually later. I know and we can talk about some of our experiences, and then talking to potential graduate advisors to find out.
Yeah, it kind of runs the gamut, because in my experiences, one of the schools that I did not go to for my PhD, the stipend was not enough to you got a tuition waiver and a stipend, but it was not really enough to afford housing in California. And when I asked a lot of the other PhD students when I visited, how do you do this? And they're like, oh no, we work 2 other jobs. Neat. Which is one thing that's important if you're applying to graduate school. talk to the other students and find out what it's like there, because that could be something you're like, okay, I could do that for a couple of years, or you might be like, hell no. And be honest with yourself about that, because yeah, if you have a funded project, you generally are expected to focus on that, and you usually should not need to have another job. But sometimes, if you have a project, if you need a third year and you only have 2 years of funding, that's where you need to start having those conversations. But
Yeah,
if that's the case, you need to be even more regimented, I would say, with your time, and make sure that you give yourself enough time for work, for schoolwork, and also for play, because you need to give yourself those outlets, be it like a journal club, a knitting club, hiking. You need to make sure that you give yourselves that too, because burnout in grad school is a real thing.
Yeah, it's as much as everyone wants to say you're going to get done in 2 years. One of the things to look for is the track record of previous grad students from an advisor, and I didn't do that, and I was there for 3.5 years, and so that last year and a half, the joy was to find a job that worked in there. So I worked for the DNR for 6 months in that time. I think I was a kayak guide for a little bit of time. You're scratching together jobs that will pay the bills, but once those 2 years of like funded time are up, that's where you definitely are going to be able to use the skills you've already had and then apply them and try and find an outside job.
Awesome. Well, we are just about out of time, so I just wanted to thank all of the faculty for being here and answering everybody's questions. And of course, everybody's faculty emails are in the chat. They're also up on the website too. If you go to Eastern Washington University Geology Department, there's a big list of them. All their contact information's up there, so you guys can reach out to them that way as well. And then our trivia night on Thursday at 5, an announcement will be coming out. Don't worry about it. It's been a quarter, but thank you all for coming. And I really appreciate everyone who came out to all the other seminars. It was super great this quarter. And we'll hopefully see you guys on Thursday.
Chelsea, if you want some help organizing some of the recent graduates, especially those that have jobs around here that have a master's, don't have a master's, I'm happy to, we can give you names for that. And so like Ethan, your question, there are some that work for environmental consulting companies, and then also some that work for state and local agencies. So yeah, to have a session like this might be useful, and they'd love to come back to campus. They could probably do it pretty easily via Zoom, and that way, other students can kind of get their perspective, because getting our perspective is one thing, but getting perspective from other students who have actually gone through the same program as you have might be beneficial as well, and that'll help you make some contacts too. So
yeah, that would be awesome if we could get like an alumni Q&A sort of thing going, maybe next quarter. Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. I'll send you a list of names and maybe what you can do. And feel free to share this with other students, but you can probably find them on LinkedIn, and then you can say, oh, that looks like an interesting person, or this does, if you want to narrow it down that way. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys around.
Bye.
Bye.